What happened to the beans? I wonder, students, what did happen to the beans? Remember the first day of school? We planted those beans, 4 beans inside those red cups. Well, we planted those now 11 days ago on the first day of school, back on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. We had rattlesnake beans, golden wax beans, contender beans. What happened to the beans? We're about to find out. So, what I have here is a summary of what happened with our bean growing experiment. That's what it says right here, bean plant growing experiment summary. And I have 4 pictures. These were the 4 different bean plants that we planted. And remember that I labeled them. I wrote the names of each bean that was planted so we can identify them. And we planted 4 beans on the first day of school, Wednesday, 8/12/20, which means August 12th, 2020. The bean plant cups were put in the yard with full sun and were watered every day. And here they are. They stayed out there. They got their sun every single day and they got watered every single day. I didn't miss one time. So they got water and they got sun. So that's what plants are supposed to get to grow, right? Well, let's find out. Let's see what happened. So, in summary, one rattlesnake bean sprouted, but it stopped growing during the heat wave. Remember that? I showed it to you. You could barely see a little bitty sprout coming out of the top of the soil. And yeah, that started growing, but um, after a couple of days, it just stopped. I think, yeah, that heat wave was just too much for it. The other beans also did not sprout. So all those 4 bean plants, and we don't have a single one growing. So that means this bean growing experiment is now over. It was 11 days total. If you look at the yellow text at the bottom, 11 days total from August 12th to August 23rd. A failed experiment. And I call it failed because we didn't succeed. None of the beans sprouted and nothing grew. And well, that happens. Sometimes we try and sometimes we fail. The important thing is to learn from those failures. So, what can we take out of this, even though we have no bean plants? We can get an important lesson out of this. So, I thought about what were the things that I didn't maybe think of in advance that could have made this a success. What mistakes did I make? So now, looking back in the past, I realized that I did not check the weather forecast before planting the beans. Yes, I was so busy getting ready for the beginning of school, I wasn't reading the news, looking at the weather or anything. I had no idea there was a heat wave coming. All I was thinking of is I want to plant some beans on the first day of school and watch them grow, and maybe they will be successful and grow into a full plant. Um, but I didn't look at that weather forecast. And yeah, I didn't even know there was a heat wave coming. The heat wave was probably too hot for the beans to sprout. I don't know that for sure, but that is my guess because beans usually grow very easily. Usually, if you plant 4 beans, then all 4 of them grow. And that's the way they usually grow, but not this time. None of them grew. So I'm guessing it was the heat wave. Here's my third mistake. The bean plants had too much sun in the yard. You see these cups right here? Well, you're looking at a different plant here. This is not our bean plant. This is a different one that I'll talk about in a moment. Um, they had probably too much sun. They were right in the middle of the yard where the sun was on them all day for a really long time, hours and hours and hours in the sun every day. So if I had put these bean plants here, maybe if I put them in a shady spot, they would have survived. Maybe they would still be growing. I don't know, but that would be an intelligent. I apologize. I have a wheel that rolls out of control. Better to use the arrows. So putting them in the shade would maybe have saved them. Okay, so I've learned from these mistakes. I've learned something. So this was not a complete failure. Failed on this crop, but we are going to move forward with new knowledge. What's next for our bean plant growing experiment? Well, we will persevere. Persevere. Remember that word. We're going to focus on it. Persevere. You're going to work hard even though things aren't going right. You're going to try again. Learn from our mistakes and plant more beans in a better, smarter way. So here's how. Before I plant any more beans, I will check the weather forecast before planting the beans to make sure there is no heat wave coming. Yeah, I haven't looked at the weather forecast yet, so if it's going to be 100 degrees again in a few days, not a good idea. I'm not going to plant the beans. But the important thing is checking the weather forecast. See, I learned a lesson. Now I know you check the weather, Mr. Barry, before you plant these seeds. And here's the next one. Once I do plant them, I will put the bean plants in a shady part of the yard. Maybe it doesn't need the shade. I'm not sure, but I'm going to put it in a place that has more shade because, well, I think it was that hot sun that prevented them from growing. And I will plant 8 beans instead of 4. Yeah, doubling down. Last time I did 4, and none of them were successful. But hey, if we plant 8, that is double the chances of being successful over 4. So, yeah, I think taking all these steps over here will help improve our chances. We might just have a successful bean crop after all, because we're going to persevere and learn from the mistakes. And I thought this was a good photo to end it with because I'm sure you've seen this little plant right here. And do you think that's a bean? Nope. That is a weed. Yes, it's a weed. It just jumped into this little cup, the same cup that the beans are trying to grow in. This little weed blew in on a seed somewhere. The wind blows and yeah, the earth scatters and this little seed just happened to make it in here and find a place to live. And a weed is a plant that you don't want. Usually people pick the weeds because, well, yeah, if I was growing a bean plant in here, I would pick it out because I don't want the two to have to compete with one another. But you know what? Since this is growing in the cup, I'm just going to keep watering this weed. I'm going to keep watering it, and yeah, we'll see what it is. I don't even know what it's called, but I don't know what it looks like when it grows bigger. But I'm going to keep watering this weed, and just by chance, we're doing another little experiment. Let's grow the weed. So that is it for the bean plant growing experiment. Be ready for the next stage, which is going to be planting 8 beans after I check the weather forecast.